What is up, though, Lions fans? We are back. It's your boy, Motor City Don P, and the Motor City Cats back at it. I came to give you stats, not static, but whatever you do, keep your Lions news pragmatic. Listen, the Detroit Lions showed you yesterday that they are the best team in the National Football League, and there is no question. I can't say it's not even close because obviously, we've got the Kansas City Chiefs and they're undefeated and they keep finding ways to win. I mean, they just win in the most annoying ways possible, if you could say that, because we're on our way to the Super Bowl. By the looks of everything that you've seen, we are on our way to the Super Bowl. If this team, and I said this yesterday, if this team does not make the Super Bowl, I don't know what to tell you. Something has to have gone terribly wrong. Because while most of us thought that things were going terribly wrong yesterday, I'm not going to say most of us. All of us thought that things were going terribly wrong yesterday. And all of us recognized that things were going terribly wrong yesterday, but some of us, like myself, did not believe that with things going terribly wrong, we were going to lose that football game. Even at halftime, after Jared Goff threw his final pick of the half, which is crazy, that he threw that many in the first half. It's crazy that he threw 5 through 3 quarters. All of these things are crazy. But even with that being the case, I felt going into the half down 23-7 that there was a possibility of winning that football game. Because you see, it was only a 2-score game. And you look at a half, scoring 23 points in a half isn't impossible. It's not even what you would call difficult. Shout out to victory buffs, by the way. Okay, these victory buffs, this is what they are. Okay, we got the big play buffs. We got the victory buffs. We got the buffs for you. Okay. And shout out Zadarius Smith, who had the buffs on yesterday, post-game, pre-game. So going into the half, down 16 points. 16 points is 2 touchdowns and 2 2-point conversions. And then even at that point, all you really needed was 2 touchdowns and a field goal. You didn't need the 2-point conversions. But the Detroit Lions stiffened the defense. We're going to talk about Aaron Glenn. The Detroit Lions did what they needed to do, even though Jared Goff threw you another one. Okay? He threw you a couple more in the second half. Okay? And all I said, I tweeted this during the game because I was live tweeting. I said, the Detroit Lions, the way our defense is playing, we're just waiting for our offense to join the party. And this is exactly what happened. Our offense eventually joined the party. It was tough sledding for David Montgomery. For a while, it was tough sledding for Jahmyr Gibbs. It was tough sledding for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Wasn't really tough sledding for J-Mo. Wasn't really tough sledding for Sam LaPorta. And unfortunately, he left the game with an injury, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. It wasn't tough sledding for those two guys, even though Jared Goff did throw a pick, almost 2, trying to hit J-Mo. If Derek Stingley could have held on to that one that he dropped, he undercut that ball. Goff has to get more on that. Now, how was he going to get more on that while he was being consistently and constantly pressured? I don't think you could. And that was the issue. In the first half of that football game, the offensive line was getting unalived. Okay, I'm not sure if I can say the other thing. Okay, they were getting unalived. Dan Skipper, and someone tweeted me during the game because I was responding to a tweet, or I was responding not to a tweet. I was responding to what Chris Collinsworth was saying. The Dan Skipper looked okay. He was doing all right. No, the hell he was not. Okay, Dan Skipper was not doing all right. And someone responded to that tweet by saying, well, you know, he's not the problem. Well, I didn't say he was the problem, but he wasn't the solution. He was a large part of the problem. Dan Skipper gave up 9 quarterback pressures to Danielle Hunter. 9 in one game to one player. He gave those up. Okay, that was reminiscent of the Bucs game when Aidan Hutchinson got the 4 picks, or the 4 sacks, sorry. So the guy that was on him, School, I think it was named. I remember that because he was getting schooled. But for him to give up all those pressures to Aidan Hutchinson one-on-one was crazy. So Dan Skipper giving all those pressures up to Danielle Hunter one-on-one was crazy as well. Okay, these are crazy things that were happening. So was Dan Skipper all of the problem by himself? No, he wasn't. Was he part of the solution? No, he wasn't. So when we were going into halftime, I put out a short, and you can go back and look at these things. You know, check out the shorts on the channel and all this stuff. Check out my tweets, okay? MCDP313 on X, at MCDP313. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you smash like buttons. You know, new channel. And some of you that have seen me before, you remember who I am, the artist formerly known as Chef, right? So new channel now. But remember, I said going into this half, the only thing that I wanted to see happen, I wanted to see Ben Johnson go in and rip the offensive line a new one, because they were not helping us do anything. Jared Goff didn't have any pressure. They weren't opening any holes for the running game, and so on and so forth. And they came out in the second half, and it wasn't instant. But the turning point of that game, mentally, was Jared Goff throwing the interception right after Carlton Davis stepped in front of a CJ Stroud pass and took that one, picked that one off. Okay? Because Jared Goff, when he threw that interception, he put his hands on his head like, oh, I can't believe I threw another one. And I think at that point, they kind of locked in and focused in. They were like, look, man, we're still in this game. Here's a thing that I told people that I latched on to, because I was watching Armani and Edwards. Shout out to Armani and Edwards. I was watching them on Woodward Sports, and they had the Texans beat reporter DJ Penei. Okay, not Bieniemy, Penei is his name. He was on the show, and they were asking him questions, and he said something which I found really interesting. And I'm going to tell you why I found it interesting. He said that the Texans at home were struggling to score more than 24 points. They were 4-0 at home, but they hadn't scored more than 24 points. And the reason that I thought it was interesting is because I watched this team against the New York Jets score 13 points. And I think they got to 13 points by kicking a field goal at the end of the game. This is a team that just scored 23 points after being spotted 5 interceptions. They scored 23 points after being spotted 5 interceptions. The offense for the Houston Texans was not great. The offense for the Houston Texans was stagnant. It was herky-jerky. They had some parts where they got on a roll. C.J. Stroud did get on the roll in the first half. The running game never got on a roll. The Detroit Lions went back to playing Detroit Lions football, Detroit Lions defense, stopping the run very easily. All right? They were swarming Joe Mixon. I almost called him Joe Milton again. I always do that. All right? Shout out Joe Milton. University of Michigan legend Joe Milton. I don't know what he did at Tennessee, so if you want to call him a Tennessee legend, you can. Go ahead. I don't know. But he didn't have anywhere to go. He didn't have anywhere to run. Mixon. Again, Milton. Joe Mixon is a guy that was able to rattle off a bunch of 100-yard games. I think he was the only running back in the history to have like 5 100-yard games in his first 6 seasons with a franchise. It doesn't matter if that's, who you were drafted by, or you signed with them as a free agent, or you were traded. Doesn't matter. His first 6 games with a franchise, he was the first running back in the NFL history to have 5 100-yard games. So this is the guy that was averaging, I think, 105 a game. At one point, he had like 23 carries and 30 yards. Okay? His final box score was this. All right? Let's look at the box scores. Detroit Lions versus Houston Texans. Okay. Here are our box scores. All right, so let's see here. Joe Mixon, 25 carries for 36 yards, or 46 yards, sorry. Joe Mixon had 25 carries for 46 yards. That's a 1.8 yard per carry average. I think he was averaging something like 3.6 yards after contact. Again, he was around 1.6 after contact. So he was averaging, I want to say 4.6 yards per carry coming into this game. He went down to 1.8. So the Detroit Lions went back to basics as far as defending the run, because, the last few games, we gave up 95 yards to Josh Jacobs. We gave up like 90 yards to Tony Pollard. Kenneth Walker had 80-something yards, right? So we were giving up some biggish games to running backs. And it was uncharacteristic, because I think it's been 700 days since a running back has rushed for 100 yards or more against the Detroit Lions. So it was uncharacteristic of how we have been playing defense. Now, Aaron Glenn was able to coach his defensive line back up. We got Josh Pascal back. James Houston played a great game. Okay? Now, for those of you that know me, I am a James Houston guy. I've been defending James Houston. I've been trying to find reasons that James Houston is doing well, and so on and so forth. And, hadn't been doing great. Okay? He hadn't been doing great with, the opportunities that he was given. But the more that he's played, and the more that that's been asked of him, and the more snaps, he's improving. And this is what you generally see from a football player. When you get him more snaps and you get him more involved in the game plan and so on and so forth, if he has any ability at all, it's going to come out. He's going to show that ability. If he doesn't have any ability, then that's also going to show as well. Remember, James Houston is a guy that came and got 8 sacks in 7 games as a rookie, and this is why we had the James Houston hype, and this is why we thought that there was so much potential, and this is why we wanted him to succeed, because we saw it on the field. Okay, now from the injury and then getting back into the swing of things, right? Somebody said that, on that half a sack that he got, because I believe he had 1.5 sacks. When the offensive lineman tried to strip sack CJ Stroud by himself. Okay, so when he got there, he got underneath Tunsil. Okay, now remember, Laramie Tunsil is one of the best left tackles in the game, right? So he got under him, and he was able to go back there and be part of that play. So James Houston played a heck of a game. Some people may say that he pooped his pants. Okay, there's a picture going around showing little, I don't know if it's green or yellow. He said he sat in some Gatorade. Okay, I don't know. Okay, I'm not gonna get too far into that one, but he was giving it his all. He was able to do what he needed to do to get CJ Stroud on the ground one time. After dropping into coverage, CJ Stroud was confused, didn't really know what to do, and then he was able to come down and sack him. And then on the other one with the strip sack, almost strip sack from the offensive lineman, James Houston had a hand in that one as well. So again, he's getting better. Okay, he's getting better. Now, I believe Zadarius Smith is also going to help James Houston, because we saw Zadarius Smith coaching our defensive line on the on the sidelines, giving them tips. Okay, and these are things that we know, right? And this is something that I didn't actually know myself, that defensive linemen don't listen to protection, right? Because he's telling them to listen to the protection. And this is something that they took into account as they shored things up, right? This is something that you would think would be common knowledge, right? Because if you hear something with an L, it's to the left. If you hear something with an R, it's to the right, right? So if they're coming up and they're supposed to be running to the left, and then they say rover, check, easy, Ringo, anything of that nature, right? Or they're supposed to be going to the right, and they come up and they say, oh, check, easy. Linval Joseph, whatever the case may be, they just yell out something to the left, right? It's an L, okay? Laser, blue 80, laser, going to the left. And it doesn't matter what they say. All you have to do is listen to that. That's why I believe that if you're a quarterback and you come up to the line, you just say things like, let's go. Run it. Okay? Both of those things. Let's go. Hurry up. Run it. Let's go, right? So if you say let's go, you're going to the left. If you say run it, you're going to the right. That kind of is not something that would tip off the defensive lineman, because they feel like this is just some regular things that a quarterback is saying. Let's go. He's trying to hurry the people up. Run it. Making urgent, signs with his hands. And he's telling them, okay, run it means we're going to the right. Let's go means we're going to the left. Okay. Now, if you're not listening to the protection, as it seems that they weren't, then you're not going to pick up on something like that. But if you start saying a lot of crazy things like Lexington, last war survival. Like, if you just start throwing things out that are crazy, I think that the defensive line probably should be able to pick up on those things again. So big shout out to Zadarius Smith for doing all of that while not being able to play. Okay? And he wasn't able to play because Dan Campbell decided, let's take care of our newest player, like we always take care of all of our players. Let's take care of him. Have him go home, because of the whole thing down in Florida with the hurricane and everything like that. And he needed to get to his house and check on the house. Let's give him the time to go and do that. Let's give him the time also to rest up his body, because he was supposed to be on a bye week when he got traded to us. We've already had our bye week. It was early. Now we got him. So let's have him come in and just chill out. Okay, let's have him come out and just chill out. Come in and just chill out. And then again, we still have 4 sacks on CJ Stroud without him. I didn't think that 8 sacks, which is what they gave up against the Jets. I didn't think that 8 sacks was going to happen. Now, there's 2 reasons I didn't think that 8 sacks were going to happen. One reason is because our defensive line, as currently constructed, is not the Jets' defensive line. Okay? Let's just call a spade a spade. We do have Aleem McNeil and DJ Reader in the middle, but on the outsides, we are missing Aidan Hutchinson and Marcus Davenport. So 8 sacks is not something that I thought that they would get from that standpoint. And from the other standpoint, I felt like adjustments were going to be made. Okay, if you're, again, shout out DJ BNMA. If your beat reporter can come in and tell people this is what the Detroit Lions will probably try to do to the offensive line, because everybody does it to the offensive line, right? And the fact that the interior 3 of the Texans offensive line had given up like 20 something sacks is crazy, right? You got your left guard, your right guard, and your center, and they've all combined to give up 20 something sacks. When you have something like that going on, I thought that they would, because this is what their job is to do, make adjustments. And you see they shuffled some things around. They moved someone to center that wasn't the center. They moved someone to guard who wasn't the guard, and so on and so forth. Okay, but they were still able to go ahead and get 4 sacks. I mean, Pat O'Connor got a sack. James Houston got a sack. Levi Onwuzurike got a sack, and Aleem McNeil got a sack. All right, so they had a sack from 4 different people. 1 sack from 4 different people. Okay. So they made him uncomfortable to a certain degree. They weren't able to make him uncomfortable like last week when they played against the Jets, but they made him uncomfortable to a certain degree. When you come out after halftime, you're down 16 points. The Detroit Lions had not won a game being under Dan Campbell, or I think I heard a stat that it was ever, and I would have to go back and look because that's crazy. But under Dan Campbell, being down 10 or more points at halftime means no victory. This was the victory. It's like every week there is a streak in the negative that the Detroit Lions break. Remember last year when the Chicago Bears had a dubious, they joined dubious company when they were the first team to be winning the turnover battle by, 3+, and up at a certain point in the fourth quarter and lose. They were like the first team since the 50s to do that, right? Well, the Detroit Lions became the first team since the 1970s to be down 5+ interceptions, right? To have given up 5+ interceptions and to be down 15+ points and still win the game. When you hear stats like that, then the question is, what is the way in which the Detroit Lions, as currently constructed, will lose a football game? I don't want to know the way. I don't want to witness the way. I hope they run the table, go 16-1, and win the Super Bowl. Go straight through the playoffs, win a Super Bowl. I don't care about any other team right now. I don't care about the Buffalo Bills. I don't care about the San Francisco 49ers. Okay. I don't care about the teams in the division, because if you look at the remaining schedule, the Buffalo Bills and the San Francisco 49ers, I mean, the San Francisco 49ers more so by name, not really by how they're playing. They're going to be the people that, or the teams that are going to be not favored, but favored to put a chink in your armor. Okay. And you can never give up. You can never not give up, but you can never overlook the division. I mean, when it's the division, you can throw the records out. It doesn't matter, because these teams know you better than any other team knows you. They play you twice a year, every single year. So it's never okay to overlook an opponent. When the Lions were 0-16, they fought and they clawed every single game. They fought and they clawed in the division. I think there was one blowout game where it was I think it was the Philadelphia Eagles beat us something like 52-17 or something like that. So there was really only one uncompetitive game in an 0-16 season, right? Nobody thought that team was going to lose all 16 games. Especially how we started out the preseason and we went 4-0 and everybody was like, "Oh man, this is the year," but they just didn't know what it was the year for. Okay, so you can never just say, "All right, well, in the division it's the division," and Chicago Bears suck. The Chicago Bears do suck. The Chicago Bears. Let me talk to you. The Chicago Bears have to probably be the most disappointing team in the NFL right now. And the reason I say that is because they had the number 1 overall pick who just came in the league. And I told people this. I told people that Caleb Williams is arrogant. I told people that Caleb Williams doesn't get it. And I said, if he doesn't have a coach, if he does not have a coach that can coach out the hero ball, he was going to fall in love with the hero ball. And that's the thing that was going to lose them football games. This is exactly what has happened with Caleb Williams. I will take you back. I did not watch the Bears in Hard Knocks. I had better things to do with my time. But I did see a clip after, I believe it was his first preseason game. So during practice or whatever, he was struggling, and they had all types of problems with the operation. They had all types of problems with pre-snap penalties, false starts, getting snap counts down, all of these different things. And then they go out and they play against was it the Bills? Second and third stringers and all these things. And Caleb Williams, remember he made that 40-yard throw on a rope back across his, on the run, across his body to Cole Kmet. And everybody was, Caleb Williams. Oh, he's here, baby. He's arrived. In the preseason, people were doing this. People were doing this in the preseason. Caleb Williams has faced 2 fellow rookie quarterbacks in his class. One of the rookie quarterbacks he hasn't faced because obviously he's missing his rookie season is J.J. McCarthy. I believe that if Caleb Williams were to face J.J. McCarthy, he probably would lose to him too. Caleb Williams has faced 2 rookie quarterbacks in his class, Jaden Daniels and Drake May, and he's lost to both of them. 19-3 to the Patriots is crazy. Caleb Williams is not an NFL quarterback right now. I don't know what he's going to be, but this rookie season ain't the season that you want to have. It just isn't. Okay? But back to the Detroit Lions. My favorite team and yours. I don't know if you like understand or if you can quantify the monumental feat that going on the road, spotting your opponent in their house 5 possessions because you couldn't stop turning the football over. And then you still win the football game. There are multiple shout-outs that have to go around. I mentioned this man before. Dan Campbell gave him a game ball because he's from Houston. He's the defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn got so much hate and so much heat and so much pressure in the early days of this, we can't call it a rebuild anymore, but the early days of this regime, right? Aaron Glenn was just fire Aaron Glenn, fire Aaron Glenn, fire Aaron Glenn. And Aaron Glenn was running out there with me, you, and a couple guys from Dorchester in the secondary. Okay? Aaron Glenn, when he first got here, had Jeff Okudah. Shout out to Jeff Okudah, man. You still can't beat the Lions. You still can't. I don't even know if Jeff Okudah did he play any special team snaps last night? Okay. Did he play any special team snaps? I don't know that he did. I really don't. But shout out to him, for being on a team, and just being on the team. That's all I can say. But he had Jeff Okudah and Jerry Jacobs. Those were his starting cornerbacks. I think there was somebody else here. I don't remember who it was. Then after they got rid of Okudah, he had Cam Sutton and Jerry Jacobs. So neither one of those guys are supposed to start in the NFL. Neither one of them. Okay? Neither one of them are. They're not supposed to be starters in the NFL. I think Jerry Jacobs is quality backup. I think Jeff Okudah is a linebacker. I don't think he should be playing cornerback in the league. However, with 1 second here. However, with yeah, okay. I have no idea what's going on. But anyway. So anyway, in order to go into an opponent's house, spot them 5 touchdowns, or 5 interceptions. As I said, Aaron Glenn has done a masterful job. Now that Aaron Glenn has the pieces, we've got Terrion Arnold, who, again, the game has to slow down for Terrion Arnold. So if any of you guys are out on Terrion Arnold and you're like, oh, he's not any good, yada, 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 whatever the case may be, whatever you might want to say about him, yeah, I have to figure out what is happening here. So whatever you want to say about Terrion Arnold, and you feel like he's not any good and he's not going to get any better, shame on you. Okay, he is a rookie. The game has to slow down for him. He's not focused on his technique enough, but he is focused on his technique, right? He just has to get more of a feel for the game. And through the coaching of Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell and all these guys, he's going to get his feel for the game. You know, it's coming. It's not an issue. The other thing that we have to realize is he is in a room with Carlton Davis. Anyway. All right. Having some technical difficulties. But, Carlton Davis is going to be coaching him up, helping him to understand. And he already is doing this. So it's just once the game settles down. Because when he got that pass interference penalty, had he got his eyes behind him, had he looked back for the ball, he would have seen that he also could have made a play on the ball, and he might have been able to get his first pick. But all he saw was he was a step or two behind. The receiver, looked up, and he's like, the ball's coming in. I have to make a play. I have to break this up. And that's what got him the penalty. You've got the two safeties in Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph, who are not even arguably. We don't even have to argue with any other safety tandem in the league. Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch are the best safety tandem in the NFL right now, as we speak. Okay? I don't know if that John Mechie touchdown at the end of the half, which was the first touchdown that they had given up in the last 2 minutes of a half all year. So I don't know if that one was credited to them, to one of them, Kirby or Brian Branch, because if not, this safety tandem still hasn't given up a single touchdown. Okay, if it was credited to them, then this safety tandem has given up one touchdown in 8 games, which is crazy to think about. Okay, both of them can play man, both of them can play zone, both of them can play free or strong. They're not as interchangeable as you would want them to be, right? But they are pretty interchangeable. The last week against the Packers, that interception that Kirby Joseph got, he was playing in the spot of Brian Branch because Brian Branch had been ejected on some old trumped up charges. So these guys are as good as you think they are. Okay, Jack Campbell is coming into his own. I believe Jack Campbell is still leading the league in leading the team in tackles. Okay, Jack Campbell had a nice little pass breakup. You go to Macy's, get you a nice little deal. If you know, you know. Tiger wish he could. Anyway, so Jack Campbell had a nice pass breakup yesterday. Okay, Jack Campbell's flying all over the field, so on and so forth. And that's what's happening. So he's coming into his own as the middle linebacker. Alex Anzalone is always going to be doing Alex Anzalone things. And again, we're missing Malcolm Rodriguez, who's filling in for Derek Barnes, who we're missing. We're missing the fill-in we're missing the fill-in. I was going to say the fill-in for the fill-in, but we're missing the fill-in. Okay? Trevor Nowatzki is the fill-in for the fill-in. So we're missing the fill-in, so we're down to the fill-in for the fill-in. What else can you say about this football team, man? You know, Aaron Glenn has coached this team to this defense, because this defense is, I don't want to say carrying the team, but the defense carried the team yesterday. The defense is a driving force. You know, when you have the number one offense, you can't necessarily say that the defense is carrying the team, but the defense is definitely a driving force. It's not just along for the ride. Okay, last year, the defense was just along for the ride. It wasn't good. Okay, they weren't able to get anything going last year. And they still got to the NFC Championship game. So now you've got a defense who is are they 50-50 partners? I mean, you could say that top 5 scoring defense in the league, so on and so forth. Top of the league in turnover streak. Okay, they've got turnovers in the last 12 games. And they might be tops of the league in the number of turnovers. Because they got multiple turnovers this last game. So this is a team right now that has a defense and has an offense. And both of these things travel. And we can't lose sight of that fact. All right. So speaking of the offense. As we said, Jared Goff was awful. He was 15 for 30 for 240 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Now, a 50% game still finds Jared Goff leading the NFL in completion percentage after a 50% game. That's crazy, right? All right, so rushing. Jahmyr Gibbs, 19 carries for 71 yards, 3.7 yard average. His worst average of the year. David Montgomery, 12 for 32 yards, 2.7 yard average. His worst average of the year. Okay? And then, of course, Jared Goff was 1 for 2 yards. So that's a total of 105 yards rushing. As bad as they were offensively, they still had 100 yards rushing. Sam LaPorta, 3 receptions for 66 yards and a touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 6 receptions for 60 yards and a touchdown. Jameson Williams, 3 receptions for 53 yards. No touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs, 2 receptions for 37 yards, 18.5 yards per reception average. And who is this? David Montgomery, 1 catch for 24 yards. Okay, so in total, Jahmyr Gibbs had 108 yards from scrimmage. In total, David Montgomery had 56 yards from scrimmage. Okay, so even though they weren't doing great in the run game, they found a way to affect this game. They, as I said, they still had over 100 yards rushing between Gibbs and Monty and Goff. He put his 2 cents in, literally 2 yards. Okay, Vanilla Vic was on full display. You already know what it is. But both of them were able to do damage in the pass game as well. This is a team that is full. This is a team that is well-rounded. This is a team that can attack at every single juncture. Okay? The safeties of the Houston Texans We talked about this last week, right? In the lead up to the game, we talked about the safeties for the Houston Texans. We talked about the challenges that they've had, the difficulties that they've had in coverage as far as communication. Everything that we talked about in the lead up to the game, remember, the Houston Texans had 10 days to get ready for us. And everything that we talked about in the lead up to the game that was a weakness of the Houston Texans, they tried their best to fix it. And that's what well-coached teams are going to do. That's just what they're going to do. Okay? They tried to find a way to fix it. So in some areas they did, in some areas they didn't. But JMO beating them over the top after getting switched on to a safety or after getting switched on to a Kamari Lassiter who runs a 4.6, that wasn't going to happen. So JMO had to do his work more so in the middle of the field, and that's what he did. Okay? So it's all just so much better than what you could have hoped as a Detroit Lions fan. It's all just so much more fulfilling when you are a fan who has had to struggle through all of the crap that we've had to struggle through and to go through all of the crap that we've had to go through. It's so much better now where you can sit, and I'm not going to lie. They had us in the first half. I'm not going to lie. Okay? I'm not going to say that my heart wasn't pumping. I'm not going to say that it was not stressful. I'm not going to say any of those things. But what I am going to say is that I had a strong feeling that the game was very winnable. And it was. Imagine that. 5 interceptions. And we got 2 off of C.J. Stroud. And C.J. Stroud's not really turnover prone. He doesn't throw a whole lot of picks. He really doesn't. And we still won that game. Jared Goff MVP conversation is all but over. I don't know if that was super important. Obviously, as a Detroit sports fan, we'd love to see our quarterback get the MVP. But you can't throw 5 picks and then catch Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is busy throwing 5 touchdowns and you're throwing 5 picks. We can't do that. I said before the game that it was shaping up to be a blowout. In one regard, I was correct. I think had we not turned the ball over at all, it would have been a blowout. But we needed the leg of Master Bates. Okay? Or Jake Bates Motel, as I like to call him. We needed the leg to get us as both of those kicks that he made from 58 and 52 shaved, absolutely shaved the uprights. Okay? But we needed that to happen in order to win the football game. Imagine what we could have done had we not thrown 5 interceptions, had we not spotted them 5 possessions. I mean, they gave us 2 back, but had we not spotted them 5 possessions, imagine what we could have done. Remember, go back to last year. Okay? Go back to last Thanksgiving, I think it was, when the Packers came to town and Jared Goff turned the ball turned it over 3 or 4 times. and we lost by 7. Just remember that. We had precedent for this game. Okay, because even that game wasn't over. And I feel like that was a worse game because we didn't have the defense that we have now. It might be a little bit early to talk about this. Maybe, maybe not. But maybe you want to look into extending Carlton Davis. Maybe so. Maybe that's something you want to do. I wouldn't mind it. Ennis Rakestraw's not ready unless he's going to make an astronomical leap. Okay, from where he is. And I don't think he's going to make that leap by not playing. Because he plays a few snaps here and there. I'm not calling for him to play more snaps. That's not what I'm talking about. But what I am saying is that I think you should sign Carlton Davis to an extension. Even if it's just a 2-3 year extension. You know, keep him here through his early 30s or whatever the case may be. I'd do it in a heartbeat. Because again, he's one of those guys who you've brought in and who has fit in seamlessly and is part of the culture. All right. So shout out to the Detroit Lions. Shout out to Aaron Glenn, to Jake Bates, to Carlton Davis. Okay. Shout out that whole defense, that defensive line. Okay. Because we stepped up when we had to. And I tweeted out that this was a very winnable game. And this was maybe 10 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter. I said that this is a very winnable game. And if you want to be a champion, you need to go out and take games like this. And that is what we did. So for those of you that stuck around, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you smash that like button like it did something to you. I am your host, Motor City Don P. And we are out. Peace.